On a crisp autumn evening in Chicago, Alexander Warren, or Alex as his students affectionately called him, sat at his desk in a cluttered apartment. The muffled hum of city life outside was a stark contrast to the silence of his small home. A silence that echoed his own struggles. His hands were stained with charcoal, remnants of the art lesson he had taught that day at a public high school. As a substitute art teacher, Alex found solace in his work, even as the mounting medical bills for his ailing mother, Laura, weighed heavily on his mind. Life wasn't easy, but he had learned to find beauty in the mundane. Across town, in the sprawling Sterling estate, Isabella Sterling gazed out of her floor-to-ceiling window. To the outside world, she was the epitome of elegance, the heiress to the Sterling legacy, surrounded by wealth and prestige. But behind the shimmering facade lay a profound loneliness. Death since birth, Bella often felt trapped in a world that refused to truly see her. Her uncle George, the current overseer of the family's holdings, had been pressing her to marry before her 30th birthday. A clause in her late father's will dictated she must do so to inherit the family fortune. Unbeknownst to them, a plan was already in motion. Their lives would intersect in a way neither could have foreseen, igniting a journey of transformation, resilience, and the power of silent understanding. Alexander Warren's days were as predictable as the ticking of the old clock in his living room. Each morning, he would sip a lukewarm cup of coffee, gather his worn-out sketchbooks, and head to the high school where he taught. His students adored him, often staying after class to watch him bring his lessons to life with charcoal and pastels. Yet, outside the classroom, life was far from inspiring. His mother, Laura, once vibrant and full of life, was now confined to bed due to a degenerative illness. The bills for her treatment piled up faster than his modest salary could cover, leaving Alex feeling trapped in a never-ending cycle of worry and work. On the opposite side of Chicago, in a world of luxury and privilege, Isabella Sterling woke up every day to silence not the comforting quiet of a peaceful morning, but the isolating stillness of a life misunderstood. The Sterling estate was a marvel, with its sprawling gardens and endless halls lined with priceless artwork. But for Bella, it was a gilded cage. Her uncle George, the current head of the family business, treated her more as a liability than a leader. The pressure to marry before her 30th birthday loomed over her like a dark cloud. George was relentless, reminding her at every turn that her father's will dictated the inheritance would slip away unless she complied. For Alex, marriage had always been an abstract concept, something far removed from his immediate reality. So when his father, Marcus, approached him with the idea of marrying Isabella Sterling, Alex laughed at the absurdity. Marcus, a former businessman with a knack for ill-fated schemes, saw this as a chance to secure the money needed for Laura's treatment. "This could solve all our problems," he said, his voice tinged with desperation. Meanwhile, Bella faced a similar proposition. George framed it as a duty, an act of responsibility. "The future of our family depends on this," he insisted. Bella, weary of fighting her uncle's dominance, found herself considering the unthinkable. Two worlds, seemingly irreconcilable, were about to collide in a way neither Alex nor Bella could have anticipated. The Sterling estate was aglow with dazzling lights, the air buzzing with the hum of conversation and clinking champagne glasses. The grand ballroom, adorned with crystal chandeliers and rare orchids imported for the occasion, was the setting for Alex and Bella's first meeting. It was a charity gala, a calculated move by George to introduce Bella to a potential suitor under the guise of philanthropy. Alex, awkward in his borrowed suit, felt out of place amidst the opulence. His life as a substitute art teacher had never prepared him for encounters with Chicago's elite. Yet, when his father Marcus nudged him forward, Alex reluctantly approached Bella. She stood near the corner of the room, radiating a quiet elegance in a tailored navy gown. Unlike the other guests, she seemed more comfortable observing the crowd than mingling. When their eyes met, Alex hesitated, unsure of what to say. But Bella surprised him. "Pleasure to meet you," she signed, her movements precise and fluid. Though Alex couldn't understand her, he caught the warmth in her expression. Guided by instinct, he simply replied, "The pleasure is mine." The wedding followed weeks later. It was the kind of event most people would dream of. A sprawling garden ceremony with flowers cascading from every corner, and a guest list boasting the who's who of Chicago society. But to Alex and Bella, it was little more than an elaborate performance. Bella, stunning in a custom gown, played her part perfectly, her serene expression betraying none of the inner turmoil she felt. Alex, in a sharply tailored suit, mirrored her composure. The vows were exchanged, the photographs taken, and the guests toasted to a union that symbolized power and prestige. Yet, as Alex and Bella stood side by side for the final group photo, both felt the weight of their reality. This wasn't a love story, it was a transaction. As they prepared to leave for their new home together, neither could have predicted how their lives would change in the days ahead. The early days of their marriage were a quiet dance of avoidance and awkward silences. The Sterling penthouse, perched high above Chicago with sweeping views of the city, was as cold and uninviting as their relationship. Alex and Bella lived like strangers, moving through the expansive space without crossing paths unless necessary. Alex spent most of his time preparing lessons for his students, retreating to the study he had claimed as his own. The sketches and lesson plans that covered his desk provided a sense of normalcy in a life that now felt surreal. Bella, on the other hand, retreated into her private library, her sanctuary, filled with first-edition books and artifacts collected by her late father. To her, this room was a reminder of a world where she could escape the pitying gazes of others. One evening, as Alex passed by the library, he noticed Bella seated by the window, a rare expression of vulnerability on her face. In her hands was a journal, its pages filled with elegant handwriting. Without thinking, Alex knocked softly on the door. Bella looked up, surprised, but gestured for him to enter. "I was wondering," Alex began hesitantly, "if you could teach me your language." Bella blinked, taken aback. "You want to learn sign language?" She signed slowly, her movements deliberate. Alex nodded. "If we're going to share this space, I'd like to understand you better." From that day forward, their evenings began to change. At first, their lessons were stilted and formal, Alex fumbling through the basics while Bella corrected him with gentle patience. But over time, the sessions evolved into moments of genuine connection. Bella's reserved demeanor softened as she saw Alex's earnest efforts, while Alex began to understand the depth of her thoughts and feelings through the silent beauty of her language. Their shared moments extended beyond the lessons. One night, Bella showed Alex a painting her father had commissioned when she was a child, a vibrant, abstract piece she had loved. Inspired, Alex sketched a companion piece, using bright colors to echo the emotions Bella had described in halting signs. When he presented it to her, she smiled, a real, unguarded smile that felt like a breakthrough. Though they were far from being a conventional couple, a fragile bridge was beginning to form. In their own quiet way, Alex and Bella were learning to navigate the chasm that once separated them, finding strength in their shared vulnerabilities. As Alex and Bella began finding small moments of understanding, external pressures grew more intense. George Sterling, Bella's uncle, was relentless in his efforts to undermine her. At every board meeting of Sterling Enterprises, he cast doubt on her decisions, presenting her as unfit to manage the family business. His whispers reached the press, painting Bella as a fragile heiress, incapable of handling the immense responsibility of her inheritance. The rumors reached Alex through a colleague at school, who casually mentioned a tabloid article about the unsteady marriage of the Sterling heiress and her struggling teacher husband. Though Alex had grown used to the occasional stares and whispers, this struck a nerve. He began to realize how deeply the world underestimated Bella, not because of her abilities, but because of their ignorance. One day, Bella discovered that George had convened an unscheduled board meeting. Sensing something was amiss, she insisted Alex accompany her. They arrived at the Sterling Enterprises headquarters, where George unveiled a proposal to limit Bella's voting power within the company. His argument hinged on her inability to communicate effectively with the board. Bella sat poised, her face betraying no emotion, but Alex could see the hurt in her eyes. He stood abruptly, surprising everyone in the room. "As her husband, I insist on being present for this discussion," Alex announced. The board members exchanged puzzled glances. "I may not know the intricacies of corporate law," Alex continued, his voice steady, "but I know how to read between the lines. This proposal isn't about Bella's capabilities. It's about consolidating control." George dismissed him with a sneer. "You're a teacher, Alex. What do you know about running a business?" As held his ground. "I know enough to see when someone's trying to take what doesn't belong to them." Bella, inspired by Alex's courage, stood and began signing her objections, while Alex translated her words with precision. "This company was built on my father's principles of integrity and trust," Bella signed. "I won't let those values be compromised." The room fell silent, and for the first time, Bella's voice translated through Alex was heard clearly. Though George's proposal wasn't defeated outright, the seeds of resistance were planted. That night, back in the penthouse, Bella retrieved her father's journal. Together, she and Alex read his entries, uncovering truths about George's schemes and his warnings to Bella. It was a pivotal moment, strengthening their resolve to face the challenges ahead as a united front. The Sterling Enterprises annual gala was the event of the year, a glittering showcase of power and prestige. George had carefully orchestrated this evening as a platform to solidify his influence, ensuring Bella was strategically seated among indifferent shareholders and Alex placed far from her at a table with socialites who barely acknowledged his presence. Bella wore a stunning emerald green gown, her composed demeanor hiding the storm brewing inside. Alex, in a sharp tuxedo borrowed for the occasion, felt the weight of the charade, but remained determined. Tonight, they had a plan. As George took the stage, delivering a speech filled with hollow praises for the Sterling family legacy, Alex quietly stood from his table. The room fell silent as he walked to the center of the ballroom, every eye now fixed on him. "My wife," Alex began, his voice steady but tinged with emotion, "is the most remarkable person I've ever known. And it's time you all truly know her too." He began signing as he spoke, his gestures fluid though imperfect. Bella, startled, watched as Alex translated his heartfelt words into her language. "Isabella Sterling is not just an heiress. She is a visionary, a leader, and a woman who has endured more than anyone in this room could imagine." Bella rose from her seat, her heart pounding. Encouraged by Alex's boldness, she stepped forward and began signing. The room, captivated, watched as Alex translated her words. "For years, I've been treated as if my silence meant I was incapable. But silence isn't weakness, it's strength. While others talk, I act." Gasps filled the room as Bella and Alex presented evidence of George's corruption. Bella's father's journal, photographs, and documents painstakingly collected over the years were displayed on the screen behind them. Each revelation landed like a blow, dismantling George's carefully constructed facade. George attempted to interrupt, but the momentum had shifted. Guests murmured in support of Bella, and even shareholders who once sided with George began to distance themselves from him. By the end of the evening, Bella and Alex had turned the gala into a declaration of resilience and truth. As they left the ballroom hand in hand, they knew this was only the beginning of their fight, but for the first time, they were no longer fighting alone. The fallout from the gala was swift and decisive. George's corruption was no longer a secret, and the board of Sterling Enterprises voted unanimously to remove him from his position. An internal investigation, spearheaded by senior executives loyal to Bella's late father, uncovered years of financial manipulation and abuse of power. For Bella, this was more than just a victory for the company. It was a personal triumph. No longer the silent heiress overshadowed by her uncle's schemes, she had proven her strength and leadership. With Alex by her side, translating her vision into action, Bella took her place as the rightful leader of Sterling Enterprises. Together, Bella and Alex implemented sweeping changes within the company. They introduced inclusive practices, ensuring that communication was accessible to all employees, regardless of their abilities. Board meetings were equipped with real-time translation technology, and a mentorship program was launched to support employees from diverse backgrounds. Outside the corporate world, their relationship blossomed into something neither had anticipated. What began as an arrangement had grown into a true partnership, built on respect, trust, and shared growth. One quiet evening, Bella handed Alex a small, leather-bound book. "This was my father's journal," she signed. "Now, I want us to start a new one together." As they began writing their own story, Bella reflected on how far they had come. She was no longer the isolated girl who felt trapped in silence, and Alex was no longer the struggling teacher doubting his place in the world. They had found strength in each other, and, in doing so, had transformed their lives and the lives of those around them. Theirs was not just a story of love, but of resilience, transformation, and the power of understanding, a legacy that would inspire generations to come.